Thank you for the opportunity to get your thoughts on it.
Pleasure.
We call it the FVR, Oral History Project, for lack of any other.
Okay.
But it's really, it's really talking to about initially 100. Now it's about 150 people who were part of different stages of FVR's life, and all the way from kabataan to the current period. Elders, senior statesmen, and you came in. What?
1992.
92, no?
Yes, as an Undersecretary for the Department of Science and Technology.
Yeah, but before that, were you already?
Not any formal association. I think it was rather my father who at some point was interacting with him in the Boy Scouts of the Philippines.
Oh my, ganun.
But way back, yes.
Malayo-layo pa.
Yes. So he knew my father.
But did you have, you still remember the first time you met, or?
The first
How
time
it
we
was?
met was really when he was honored by the United Church of Christ in the Philippines, in Ellenwood Church. He was already elected then.
Pangulo na.
Yes.
Okay. Hindi kayo nag-abot ng in the cabinet?
Well, let me backtrack. The first time we met was when he was, I think, chief of the Philippine Constabulary under President Marcos.
Marcos time pa.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was one visit of the president to Los Baños, UP Los Baños.
Where you were based?
I was based then in UP Los Baños, and he accompanied the president. He was with the president's party
Oh, okay.
during that visit. I still remember he was in uniform of the Philippine Constabulary.
Any
So
first
full regalia.
Nag-abot ba kayo? Nakapag-usap kayo? Or
No,
hindi naman?
just because he was more or less within the party, and when the president arrived, we make full use of his time, so there was an immediate briefing, and they stayed for about an hour, and then they left.
And then, umalis na.
Yes.
Okay. And then
After that, wala na akong, I don't remember any one-on-one or face-to-face interaction with him. Yes.
Except that when he became
When he became,
Ed's hero.
yes.
No, I guess, but
unfortunately, I was not able to join the EDSA.
Wala ka dito, no?
I was here, but I was in Los Baños.
In Los Baños,
yes.
Oh,
And I think during that time, I could not move to Manila. Yes. But my wife went to EDSA. Yes.
She provided the,
She
warm
provided,
body.
represented the family.
So ano na lang talaga? Nag-abot na lang kayo.
Nag-abot,
Kabinete na.
yes. When I got appointed, because Secretary Gloria, who was then Secretary of DOST, Rick Gloria,
Ricardo Gloria.
may he rest in peace, asked me to join him in running DOST.
Oh,
That was August 1992. So I had already...
shortly after the administration began.
Yes. And I had already, in fact, teaching assignments because I was professor in UP Los Baños.
Oo nga. Oo.
So then the academic calendar started in June.
Oo nga.
So I was already teaching.
Nakasalang ka na.
Yes. So I had to pull out of teaching. I had to be pulled out. Fortunately, I had somebody to take over my assignments. And so I had to report to DOST.
Okay.
Soon after I got the official appointment. Yes.
So it was really through Secretary Gloria.
Yes, because we are very, very close. Before he joined the cabinet, he was a scholar in UP Los Baños. We went to the same church.
Oo nga.
Yes, UCCP. Yes.
Yeah.
So we knew each other, and when he became an officer of Mindanao, this is in Cotabato. University of Southern Mindanao was then Mindanao Institute of Technology.
Oh, ano, yeah, right.
Yes.
MIT.
MIT.
Oh, oh.
Then before he was vice president for research, and at one time I think we visited with him in a team that was put together by the Philippine Coconut Research and Development Foundation. It was on coconut.
Oh, okay.
But every so often we would still get in touch because his family stayed in Los Baños. The kids were still studying there.
So yung
So-
connect talaga was through him, ano?
Yes,
Uh,
through him.
but why take on the challenge? I mean, life in the academia was, well, was
Well,
not as what?
I
not
was
as
really
hectic,
interested in science development.
Mm.
In fact, before I got drafted into the cabinet, I was part of a group called Kapisanan ng mga Scientificong Pilipino that was headed by Father Nebres. We were all young and aspiring scientists, and we wanted science to grow and be promoted in the Philippines. So then Esther Garcia, who is president of UE, was part of the group. Roger Posadas.
Yeah.
These are names who have become prominent in the science and technology scene. So I was already engaged in all of these issues, why we were lagging behind.
So you took it on as a
I took it on as a
challenge,
challenge.
or
And
necessary
I
next
told
step, I guess.
Secretary Gloria if I can contribute anything to enhance science and technology in the Philippines, then fine, that would be my modest contribution.
Did working for a man like FVR cross your mind at that time? Because, I mean, in effect, he'd be the man on top, right?
Yes.
Was there a motivation or any particular...
My impression, well, I don't know if it's called impression, but my interest really rested on he's the first Protestant president.
Oh, so I mean,
Yes,
being part of the same
that's why,
community.
yes, I said we would probably click. Plus, of course, he had, during the campaign, expressed very interesting views regarding Philippine societal development. And I thought there would be opportunities for science and technology to contribute to this. And I think at the time he was already trying to put together the concepts for Philippines 2000, which was later articulated into global competitiveness and people empowerment.
Oh, and that appealed.
That appealed, and because global competitiveness is necessarily anchored on a good science and technology program. Yes.
Research and development.
Yes, research and development, innovation, and we wanted to put some direction because we were, of course, part of the science community, but since the Philippines at that time decided to adopt the neoliberal approach, which is market-based,
Yeah.
and therefore dictated by market forces.
Oh.
The scientific community was really trying to orient and align itself to what it read as the market forces, which is going to be very difficult. But now that global competitiveness came in, then we thought we cannot win in everything, so we need to focus. We need to establish niches. And that's where we steered the DOST into. And if you remember, we had Philippines 2000, but we had what we call the export winners. That was part of the program for science and technology that we enunciated during President Ramos' term called STAND.
Yeah.
STAND, Philippines 2000.
So you
Science
found
and
ano?
technology for national development.
So may may anchor.
Yes,
And
Yes.
his program, you found,
yes. That was really a very uh, interesting part of developing a program within your mandate. Because unless there is some framework, it's going to be difficult. It's like gambling,
and then shooting in the air.
shooting, in the dark, and you're trying to sense whether this is going to fit into the course of events. But if you know you're okay, the president wants us to be globally competitive, the people to have a sense of direction and control of their fate, which is people empowerment, then we could design science and technology to underpin them. Of course, it's not just science and technology.
It was a mix
of so many forces.
Yes.
You have. At the end of the day, we were aware in the science community that it's the political will that will move things forward, and the magic wand in science and technology is held by the politicians.
The political will. But how did political will, as expressed by FVR, and placed in a roadmap, diba? With a clear program of government, with a clear objective,
Yes.
no, Philippines 2000, and then global competitiveness. And,
In
diba?
practice, in my view, I thought the LEDAC was the instrument and mechanism for making sure the political will is understood and there is consensus built. I think President Ramos, to me, was a very efficient consensus builder.
Yeah,
And I am a science and technology. I was then a science and technology secretary. Ordinarily, we are at the lower part of the totem pole, even protocol-wise. But I was asked to join the LEDAC. Not all cabinet members were members of the LEDAC. So, cabinet meetings were held Tuesdays. The following day at 7 a.m. is the LEDAC. So I would have to join to spend time for the two meetings. And I saw that not all cabinet members were there, so I kept wondering why Science and Technology Department Secretary was there. And we were meeting with the congressmen, the senators. But after a short while, I understood why.
But that was indicative, I guess, of the importance.
Exactly. Because I was given opportunity to present programs, and we saw it as a good mechanism to convince the leadership of Congress. The Senate President was there, the Speaker was there, the leading members of the Congress were invited depending on the topic.
The key chairman.
But also, I got to understood other issues because like when the comprehensive tax reform law was being discussed, of course, I'm not an economist, but there was a debate. And there I saw the issues that surfaced. I, of course, was interested in making sure R&D would get some incentives, which happened.
Yes, that's right.
But I also witnessed how the president settled differences amongst members of Congress, Senate, or the House, because he would say, okay, if there is an issue here, can Senator X and Congressman Y go to the room beside this and talk for an hour and come back and tell us what you have agreed upon or what you have not reached yet, and then he decides. He said, this is the way we should go.
Quite a lot of your colleagues have actually pointed out the importance of LEDAC, no?
Exactly.
as a, I guess, as a management tool, as a governance and a decision-making tool. Tell me how you viewed its importance.
I think it was really a very, very effective mechanism.
Mhm.
And there I could see the president was in control of the country. He was really in the driver's seat.
Mhm.
Because then, although we usually think of the legislature as independent of the executive, but because of his skills in building consensus, he was able to mobilize the legislature and also reconcile the programs of the executive so that they could be translated into law if necessary, or get the support of the legislature and move things forward. And I think a good example of this is the liberalization of the telecoms
Oh
industry.
my gosh,
Yes.
yeah. Oh.
So that was discussed. Tax reform was discussed. We had several legislations that were specific for science. That-
Some of the most difficult pieces of legislation this country has seen were actually passed
Exactly.
during that very short 6 year
Years.
period.
Yes, because just on the practical side, you have at the instance of the meeting of the LEDAC, the leadership of Congress. So lapitan mo na lang sila, Mr. Senate President, meron po kaming pending bill. Baka po pwede ho nating suportahan, or kung meron pong questions, we'll be happy to see you. You don't need to make an appointment because they're already there. They're
Plus, the
already-
issues aren't debated on the floor or in public. I mean,
Exactly.
who needs to make the decision and who needs to make the clarification are all on the same
Exactly.
table.
And then you have the presidential legislative liaison officer there.
The workhorses.
Yes, so, if there is a need to get some legislation moved forward, like hindi pa nagko-committee meeting, naka-file lang, pwede bang pakiusapan yung committee chair or yung secretariat? Yes.
Shepherding.
Yes, shepherding. That's why things move forward. And then you just had to be very diligent in attending the LEDAC, because although sometimes you would meet late in the evening Tuesday, and then you have to wake up
Early. the
early,
next day.
because I commuted every day to Los Baños
Oh my.
when I was in the cabinet.
Talaga?
Yes.
Oh my God.
So that's, of course, usually from Bicutan to Los Baños, but if we have a cabinet meeting, it's Malacanang to Los Baños.
Oh my gosh.
So, kung alas 7 ang, ang
meeting.
meeting ng LEDAC, alis ako ng alas 5. Ngayon, kung nakauwi ako ng, halimbawa, alas 10 ng gabi, o minsan, inaabot ng alas 12, konti na lang tulog. Mabuti lang I learned to cat nap. in the
Something
car.
which he did a lot
Yes,
as well.
because
ano?
otherwise,
Oh.
yes.
You picked up on that technique as well.
You have to adjust, and also I had to adjust being in office early, because he writes a lot of instructions, marginal notes on news reports, which his aides provide to him early in the morning, and then he says, please give me the feedback not later than 9 a.m. So
Oh my gosh.
that's where the timelines are. So if you're early in the office, magagawa mo lahat. You can get your staff to move, and then give an informed reply.
9 a.m., sir. That's first hour.
Yes.
Office hours.
Sometimes he calls you on the phone.
Mas concerned siya. In
Yes.
other words, that's a bit higher
Yeah.
level of alert for you guys.
Exactly.
Talaga.
And one incident I can remember, I was not a cabinet member anymore, and he called me one morning, I think it was a Friday morning, and he said, Willie, I'm going to Caraga. Can you join me? Because I was then the cabinet officer for regional development of Caraga. Again, an assignment which at first I did not understand, because I do not speak Cebuano. I am not from there.
Okay, I was going to ask what the connection was, but mukhang wala.
Wala. So when he said, I want you to be the Caraga officer, regional cabinet officer for regional development, I did not, of course, refuse, but I had to sort things within myself. I said, I'm not from there. I don't know the people there. So finally, in some indirect way, I got the hint. It was a very political region, and I was not identified with any of the.
You were academe.
Yes, I could not be identified, and I was not identified with any of the groups that were, kind of not liking each other.
Oo nga, no? So if you had
yes,
been from there,
if I had been from there, then there
Probably
are
may,
debts of gratitude and
may connections. So you needed to plant someone neutral.
Yes, so I did my part. Of course, it was an additional job. It cost me a lot of my weekends and weekdays, and I had to be there very often. And I had, of course, when we scheduled cabinet meetings in Caraga, of course, I'll be there.
And
of
ikaw
course,
yung point man pagka ganun,
yes,
diba?
you ride with him in the helicopter.
Oh my. The entire.
And that means you get all the instructions. And
First hand, and as it comes.
As it comes.
Oo. The chord function actually was also, I guess, an innovation of
Yes.
his administration alone.
Yes, it did not continue, but I thought it was effective because it kept the lines open to the president through, of course, the cabinet
The chord.
officer for regional development. But it also provided some kind of oversight
Yeah.
to the regional development initiatives vis-a-vis the national
government.
goals.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was not easy, but it provided that kind of mechanism, and hopefully become a seamless kind of alignment between regional development and our national development goals. So it gave the regional development council and the local government officials a sense that they are in the radar screen of the president.
Because
after that, I would give reports.
Diba? Because each region had its own cabinet
may
officer,
cord.
diba?
Tawag sa amin, cord.
Chord, yeah, no? And yeah, it dati-rati kung mayor ka, governor, parang ang dami mong kailangan daanan. Pag alam mong may chord, pwede mong...
And also it gave a kind sense of connectedness within the region. You just don't do things on your own. You have a cabinet officer for regional development. They're looking at how things being done in province X aligns and reconciles with the initiatives of province Y. Is there any conflict developing? Should you move forward with a particular initiative? Those things are discussed.
And there's also, on the regional and local government level, I guess it also tells them that there's a direct link to Malacanang, care of the court.
Yes. So that was one of the functions I had to perform. Yes.
But let me backtrack a bit, Secretary. You were Undersecretary, DOST. When were you posted as Secretary?
When Secretary Fabella resigned from the cabinet, from DepEd. Dex.
Dex noon.
Yes.
Oo.
Secretary Gloria was then asked to serve as the Dex Secretary.
Nilipat siya ni FVR.
Right when Secretary Gloria was assigned to Dex, I was appointed acting secretary.
And then
that was on July 1994, 2 years after I became USEC. and then I had to go through the confirmation process.
Yeah. But you were already, I guess, well established as well, and you were working.
Yes, we were working, and we had already designed the stand 2000. I mean, we had already the concept, the makings of that, and we had the inaugural and the launching of this particular science and technology for national development program launched during, I think the president was there.
Nagulat ka ba? Kung bakit ikaw?
Well, in a way, yes, because I knew others were interested in the
Or
position.
gunning for the post,
Yes.
More popular,
Yeah.
or may celebrity status.
Yes. Of course, I know the president checks your background, and of course consults other members of the cabinet. So that's part of the process. And I thought it was a good opportunity provided to me to maybe give a more effective voice for science.
Did he speak with you? Did
Oh,
he
yes.
call you,
Oh.
tell you, this is what I want?
This is what happened. I think he called me and he said, I want you to be acting secretary. And then during one of our out-of-town meetings, he sworn me in the presence of Senate President Drilon, I think. I still remember that.
Oh, okay.
The Sevilla More. That was I was sworn in as acting secretary.
Okay.
With regard to the programs, of course, what we report to him was the concept of Stand 2000, and he did endorse that because when we inaugurated it, it was in his presence.
Yeah,
He went
yeah.
to the affair. I think it was in Midtown Ramada then. I don't know whether it's still called that place. And he gave time to many of our other events. Like when we had the publisher and the editor-in-chief of Scientific American come in to visit with us because we were given a chance to publish a supplement for Scientific American on the Philippine science and
Wow.
technology
Okay.
scene. And we had an affair in Malacanang, and he hosted it.
He liked doing all these functions in Malacanang. I mean, to give it a
Yes.
Uh,
I think
gravitas.
yes, and it also gives a certain weight, as you say, reputation that this affair took place in Malacanang. What I did not succeed in doing was to have the Outstanding Young Scientists awards done in Malacanang,
Okay.
because during President Marcos' time, all of these awards were done in Malacanang.
Yeah. Okay.
Even now, I think we should have this revived and done where the palace is. If we award TOYM, TOYS in the palace, why not the OYS? Yes, these are very good.
What I was going to say was, FVR had the knack of finding, the term used by a number of your colleagues was right man, right job, right fit, right time. And he wasn't really concerned if it was a popular choice or, take a look at the cabinet.
Yes.
Secretary Gloria, yourself, Secretary Flavier, all very, very quietly working in the background, but all very highly qualified and well respected in their fields, and then eventually elevated to the top posts in their departments. What does that speak to you about the man?
There are a few persons gifted with a sense of you call that, intuition to gauge a person's character and worth and his potential contribution, his or her potential contribution to what the person wants to do. It can be just a university appointment or a cabinet appointment or an ambassadorial post. Yeah.
And in many cases, walang direct link eh.
Wala.
No?
Wala. Kasi hindi nga naman kami personally known to each other. I mean, of course, I met with him, but he probably, of course, looked at my CV and asked people around because I knew he would not depend on just one source of information.
Oh, that's the intelligence
Yes.
man in him, ano?
Yes, because I've had
Daming sources.
assignments from him where he checks the progress reports independently.
Oh, so
Yes.
na-confirm mo that
Yes.
that he, you know.
Yes, because I was, when APEC met in the Philippines, I was assigned to build the APEC Center for Technology Exchange for Small and Medium Enterprises, ACTETSME, in Los Baños.
Right.
Yes.
It was there.
That was a project that was assigned to me. And I would report to him, this is 30% complete, or the progress of the building is this, it will be completed by this time. Meron siyang ibang source. I think somebody would look at it or he would fly over it and check the progress because that was I think that was an important part of the country's host program, being host program for that year. Yes.
And I guess it's also, now that you mentioned it, sir, I think it was the first time that the tech cooperation at that level was introduced into the agenda
Yes.
of APEC because
Economic lang
before
naman.
that, di ba,
Yeah.
TILF, Trade and Investment Liberalization Facilitation. But he had to, when the Philippines hosted and chaired, pumasok yung
Yes.
SME, tama ba? MSMEs.
MSMEs, yes.
And then tech
Technology,
cooperation.
yes.
And then
He knew
small-
that, that was a very necessary component. But not sufficient. Necessary but not sufficient component for the economic growth and development of a country. And it's science and technology that you need to enhance. So that was one example where I knew he was checking. He was
Okay.
getting information from others. But he wanted, whenever he visits, and I don't know if others notice it, he wants a good reception. I mean, people have to be there. If you sanitize it and just have people, a few welcome him, medyo hindi maganda ang tanggap
talaga?
niya. Yes.
Okay. So, tell me, what was it like working for him? I mean, he was
He was
driven.
yes, he was a taskmaster, but you would also be inspired because you see him work too. I mean, if you get to join him in out-of-town trips, while on the plane, he processes papers. You invite him to speak in a meeting, in a conference, he brings his papers with him on the stage.
Oh my,
And he works on them while
waiting for his turn.
the program is proceeding. So, natatapos niya. And I knew he had a target for the day to finish because he would say, tapos ko na lahat ng aking for the day. So even in the car, the car is an office. If you look inside the car.
Yeah, we used to kid him about it. Mobile office.
Yes,
Diba?
but
Plate number
that's
one.
that's why you by example, you knew he was really working hard. And I think that was one factor that moved us forward. He really worked hard for it.
How did that drive you? I mean, and how did that influence the organization under
Well,
you?
because he worked hard, he looked at all communications. You knew that it was worth reporting to him and writing to him, so that he could be briefed and updated every time about your department. So, yung output mo dapat naka-document. Kung meron kang initiative na kasama yung ibang department, you have to sit down with them before you give it to him because he says, nag-usap na ba kayo ni Secretary? Yan,
Kung sino man.
hindi pa, sir. Mag-usap muna kayo, mag-coffee muna kayo bago nyo dalhin yun sa akin. That's one. So, all my reports, all issues related to us, you knew he read them because he would put marginal notes.
Yes.
That's what comes in early in the morning.
Yeah.
Secondly, you knew that he was concerned about your department because he would give an opportunity for you to, if you have an issue to be discussed in the doc, yes, you get it done. Of course, that's subject to the topics that are currently being taken up, but he always finds time. And of course, we knew that if we wanted him to appear before an affair of the department, it's better to approach him directly and look at this onion skin appointments. He would put it out of his pocket. And we knew that if he marked it there, then you're okay.
In.
You're okay. So it was a very, I think, by example, he had the discipline to work. And one thing I noticed, wala akong nawalang papeles.
Walang na-misplace.
Walang na-misplace. Even if I would give it in the field, say, here we go to Tarlac, and I have a communication, I give it to his aide, hindi yun nawawala. That was really how efficient his office was.
But I guess that was also a facet, of his military background.
Yes. Of course, everything was recorded. He knew what to, he was and he had aides, which I think were very bright and efficient too. I think they were all valedictorians of PMA.
From their different batches.
So they knew really what their responsibilities are, and they made sure that things would be in order and would not get lost because they are as important. Any document you hand over to the president will be as important as any, whether it's just a letter of information or a request for an appointment like that. But he also was a very inveterate editor.
Very meticulous.
Yes. So if you don't want if you don't want your speech to be re-edited, don't give it to him because if you prepare a speech for him, it will certainly be edited, even just before he speaks. Because I'm sat next to him and he is continuously looking at the draft. So it's true that when he hands over a copy of his speech and he said, check against delivery.
Right.
That's very true. You have to check against delivery to really get what he really said at that time.
I remember from covering him actually. Check against delivery. Tell me about CSW.
Oh, that's where I learned a lot because completed staff work meant a lot, and it was an ethic that we had to observe, especially when an issue that you want him to resolve affects several departments. In fact, his requirement for you to have coffee with another secretary or cabinet member or another agency that is not within your administrative control is part of it. You know, you do your homework, look at how it will affect other units of government. Have you had some preliminary, or have you reached an agreement? So that all you really need is a go signal or disapprove action by the president. All the facts are already there. Yes.
And everybody has a buy-in.
Everybody has a buy-in. Those are concerned. All the information needed for him to make a decision is there: quantitative, qualitative, political. So, as best as you can lay it out to him. Of course, sometimes kulang. Kasi hindi mo rin naman ma-predict kung ano pang
lahat Yeah.
lenses ang kailangan niya to decide. So, ibabalik yun.
And he'll tell you where he feels it's lacking.
Yes. Talk to, or yeah, he writes it out. So, or he calls you and tells you, ito meron akong question dito, so mag-usap muna kayo, babalik ko ito. Pero babalik yun, you will see the evidence of his concern to get it done well.
Ikaw ba inatawag ka sa principal's office?
Yes. Yes.
Share some, Was he mad?
Yes, I got some, But it was short-lived. Ganun naman siya eh. Yeah. And it was during a cabinet meeting.
Oh.
But not in open.
So he had to ask you?
Actually, quietly, this was, I don't know if I'm at liberty to divulge the occasion, but this was the time when the NBI reported that they had discovered platinum, 1 ton or some large amount of platinum from an excavation in Cagayan. So he assigned me, i-validate mo nga ito. So I did my job.
Okay.
I asked 4 laboratories to look at it. We tested it, and it turned out not to be true. So it's iron. It was a kind of an anchor, I think, that was used by either the First World War, Second World War, and it got into the land. So I think I was new then in the cabinet. So we held a press conference to announce that it was not the platinum. That was before the cabinet meeting. So let's say lunch yung press conference, cabinet meetings 2 o'clock. So then, pagdating sa cabinet meeting, dala ko na yung report. Tapos sabi niya, what is this? Sir, it's about the report. And I've already announced to the press. Doon siya nagalit, sabi niya. I told you, man, binagsak niya yung report. But just whispering to two of us. Because I'm sorry, Mr. President, I will not do it again.
He wanted to be informed first.
Before
it becomes public.
Yes.
Oo nga naman.
Oo nga naman. So, kasi instructions niya sa akin eh. Ako naman.
Maano ka?
Yes.
Lesson learned, I guess.
Lesson learned, yes. After that, wala na. Yung ganon. And I knew also there are occasions when he would, that's not affect, na hindi naman ako, pero pagka tinawag ka sa cabinet meeting at dinala ka dun sa corner ng dining room at nakatalikod kayo at nag-uusap siya, nagagalitan ka.
That meant something.
Yeah.
He was emphasizing a point.
Yes. Yes. But Yun lang naman ang tatandaan ko. Na ano.
Eh yung totoo ba yung kwento ng iba na the next door room? Punta kayo dyan, resolve your differences,
Yes,
and you have
yes.
to come back to us
Yes,
with a
during cabinet.
win-win.
Yes.
Pero you cannot come back without a win-win eh. Di ba?
Yeah, but
And
sometimes
the room didn't have aircon.
yes. Katabi yun katabi ng cabinet
Oo.
Like once there was a difference between the opinion of comprehensive tax reform law ito
No, CTRP.
Hindi ko na matandaan yung contending parties. Iba ang opinion ng Senate sa House. So, yung dalawang nag-advocate ng positions, pinag-usap niya. Na-resolve nila. Balik sila after 1 hour. Ganun, and many other occasions.
Yeah,
It may be between 2 cabinet members. So, sabi niya, that's where I saw he was in charge. He was in charge of the country. Because if you could tell the Senate President and the Speaker to talk,
Yeah, right.
you know,
In a
yes,
room that does not have.
yeah. But, you know, we knew it made sense.
Yeah. But the other
Because,
thing was you get if you debate it on the main cabinet meeting, then you lose time
exactly.
addressing others.
Yes.
Di ba?
Yung,
You guys take it out and bring it.
and at the start, I was a little bit also disturbed because he would work when you speak. He would write. So, nagsusulat siya, nagpa-process siya ng papers. Pero, mabilis ang kanyang pagpalit ng concentration because he would ask questions about what you're saying.
Wala, multitasker.
Yes. At first, I was disturbed. Sabi ko, pinagpaguran ko naman itong ginawa ko tapos hindi ako pakikinggan. Yung pala nakikinig.
Iba-ibang bandwidth siya.
Yes. Yes.
Talaga.
So, you know, that's a skill. I don't think I can do that. You know, looking at processing papers, which are important, and then listening to what's...
With an equally important
Yes.
presentation
During cabinet
happening.
meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
For example, state visit. Ay, nako, ang detalye niyan mag-review ng schedule.
Talaga.
Pagka may state visit, halimbawa, assigned ka, cabinet member, papakita mo yung schedule. Detalye yan. Minute by minute. Pero nagsusulat siya. Ano nang gagawin niya after? The other interesting thing, he knew the distances between towns.
Okay.
Whenever we would visit, alam ko yun, 32 kilometers away yung next town.
Sunod na
But that was because of his military.
Yeah. Oh, well, people aren't exactly able to put it together, diba, immediately. But when you take a look back at from where he came from.
Yes, yes.
This guy was a soldier. He was posted in nearly every
Yes,
area.
and he had to know distances. I never checked whether his figures are correct, but I would assume they are. So otherwise, hindi naman sasabihin yun.
So tell me about sir. He was always in motion. No?
Yes.
I mean, he liked moving
Yes.
about.
You had to be prepared for weekends to be with him in the cabinet and out-of-town trips. But one thing I knew, he was easy to host. Walang mga ganitong upuan dapat, ganitong pagkain, itong mga sign na ganito, may banda, you know. All he needed was people who would be there, the public to be there. Food, we ate the same.
And he didn't really eat much, no?
Yes. Sometimes sabi ko,
Spartan.
kailan kaya kumakain si President kasi pag nagbi-meeting na lunch, siyempre siya nagpe-preside. Sumubo man siya, siguro 2-3 kutsara. Kung minsan nga kami, kung hindi ka smart, magugutom ka.
Naalala ko na ano eh.
Kasi galaw kami ng galaw eh. May isang occasion, Pangasinan ang visit namin.
His home province.
Yes. We left Malacanang 7 a.m. or 6:30 by helicopter. And riding with us was his son-in-law. Yung American son-in-law ba yun? O yung
Jones.
brother-in-law. Anyway, hindi siya nag-breakfast.
Oh.
Okay. So, sabi niya, kailan kaya yung susunod na stop? Sabi namin, pag-land natin, siguro, palagi ko, may breakfast. Wala. Next stop, wala rin. Hanggang sa sabi ni Secretary Vihilar, ito, I have some soda crackers. Kasi magla-lunch na.
Yeah, I was going to ask that eh. Survival tactics mo.
You had to really, people think it's, especially during state visits. Yeah. Because it's the president's schedule that you follow.
Yeah.
And like once I was asked to join him in a 6:30 meeting p.m. With the head of Intel in San Francisco. But Mrs. Ramos was going to have a concert at 7:30 or something. Wala akong supper noon.
Wow.
Because right after that,
Diretso. Yeah.
move ka na kaagad.
Oh my.
Excuse me. And also during state visits, they ask you to check out very early because they
call.
check your luggage
Yeah.
for security.
Baggage call. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Oo nga, no?
Yeah. So people think it's nice to be with state visits. It's really a challenge for your schedule.
But state visits ni FVR, I hear some other presidents had different, had a
Iba.
different,
I'm talking about
FVR's,
his state's visits.
Oh,
Yeah. Kasi
FVR schedule.
I joined him in Russia. I joined him in US. Yun, dalawa.
And I suppose there was a science and technology component, which is why you were there.
Yes. Yes.
So specific din eh. You're not
Yeah.
accompanying him without a reason eh. No?
And sometimes, if I'm not needed for the rest of his schedule, I peel off. I mean, I return to the Philippines.
Fly back. and
Fly back
get back to,
independently. But if you join him, of course, that can be an occasion where he can give you instructions, specific instructions. Yeah. One of the more challenging schedules was when he was negotiating for floor contemplación.
95.
Yes. Because we were asked to be in the Arlegui house until dawn.
Talaga?
Because he was connecting with Go Chok Tong
Wow.
to plead for clemency.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he asked the cabinet to be there.
Sa
In his,
Arlegui
yeah,
or sa
dun
Malabon?
sa, hindi ba may isang bahay doon sa where,
Arlegui.
yes.
Oh, okay.
And I had an appointment in Muñoz
Nueva Ecija.
the following day as a speaker, commencement speaker.
Oh my.
So, tulog na lang sa daan.
On the way. Ganun talaga yung
That
work.
was how our schedules were.
Yeah.
So, you really had to work hard, but as I said, it meant a lot because you saw him also work very hard.
Just as
Yes, as hard.
Just as
Even harder, probably. And he was telling us one incident where his aides were complaining that they had very long work hours, and he said, mabuti pa kayo, may shift. tatlo kayong shift. Ako, isa lang ang
Oo nga naman.
24 hours ako.
Oo nga naman.
Oo.
Yes, yes, yes. He took the cabinet out of Malacanang, ano? You
Every
remember
2 weeks, almost
diba,
every 2 weeks.
the out of town
Yes.
cabinet meetings, ano?
Every 2 weeks.
Again, another governance and, well, I guess also
Yes. And you know, I don't know if
Connecting with
others
the people.
notice, and I think this was a mark of a man with very strong faith. The whole government was in one plane,
Mhm.
including the ambassadors.
Oh, ano?
Mga C-130, nandun po ang cabinet, nandun siya, pati ang ambassador, sabi ko,
Mm.
ano yung nangyari dito? But, it turned out all right.
Mhm.
Yeah. You know, C-130 flights don't have seatbelts, huh?
No, they don't. They don't. Yeah. Yeah.
And only toilets for male.
Yeah. Oo
So,
nga, no?
You had to have, they had to rent these portalets
Mhm. For the, ano,
for the women.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
But that was how we were asked to move around.
Mhm.
And I was in that plane that caught fire during one of the visits to Isabela.
Ayan. Sa Kawayan.
Yes, but it was still in Villamor. And with me was Josie Lichauco, Renato Corona, Vihilar, and several other staff in the plane. Sarado na ang ano,
Mm-hmm.
it was a Fokker something.
Mhm.
When they started the engine, nag-burst into flame.
Yeah.
Yung ano.
Yeah. So,
Mabuti, inaantay ko na lang pumutok yung buong eroplano. Hindi naman nangyari, mabuti lang na extinguish nila kagad. Pinalabas kami.
mm, mm,
Wait for another plane to take you to
Yeah.
Kawayan,
Yeah.
Isabela.
mhm.
I decided to continue. Some of my companions copped out and said, hindi na kami tutuloy.
Hindi na. May
So,
ano na yun.
sakay kami.
Oh.
Pagdating sa Isabela, hindi makita ng piloto yung yung strip,
Oh, okay. Cloud cover.
cloud cover.
Mhm.
Hindi rin kami naka-land. Binalik kami sa Villamor.
But you tried.
You tried, yes.
Diba? I remember one conversation where someone asked him, "Sir, diba, the government officials, you ride on, diba, aircraft
Mhm.
that that are jokingly referred to as flying coffins." And he said, I think his response was, "If it's good enough for our soldiers, it should be good enough for
Yes.
should be good enough for us, their officials."
Of course, in his case, he is in business class because even in the C-130, meron siyang special.
Yeah.
Tatrabaho siya eh.
Oo nga eh. Yeah.
He signs during the flight. He works on, you can see the sheaf of folders.
Walang nawawala, no?
Ang time management niya was really amazing. And how his stamina and patience in getting things done. You reach some limits of human endurance too, if I were the case, to look at
Yeah.
a foot or a foot and a half
Of
high
paperwork.
paperwork.
Yeah.
Yes.
How important to you was the fact that he made it part of the national agenda, science and technology, research and development?
I think it was a very significant part of his administration. If you look at the history of science and technology globally, it is an agenda that is dispensable.
Generally.
Yes. Of course, now it's getting to be more important in the state of affairs because of our knowledge economy. But before then, people would pay little attention to it or pay lip service to it. But I think in the case of President Ramos, he gave it the importance that he thought it would merit under the National Development Agenda. The fact that I was made a member of the DAC is a good sign. the fact that I was allowed to make presentations in the LEDA on science and technology was also to me a very good sign that it was an important part of his agenda. I was given full control of the OST. I don't remember him calling me up and saying, "Gawin mo ito."
I think that was also a mark of his leadership.
Yes.
Di ba? Na, I mean, nilagay na kita dyan.
Yes. Of course, he would ask for reports.
Yeah.
And that's probably the way he would gauge whether you're on track or not. And of course, during cabinet meetings, that was also an opportunity for you to express whatever you wanted to, or an opinion on an issue, or for you to be in the agenda and make a presentation on the progress of your work. So I think we made some significant strides, modesty aside. For example, it was during his term that we got linked to internet.
Yeah, right.
Yes. And that was
Philippines
just when internet was becoming globally popular and being dispersed. So we entered right at the time when it was becoming more and more a part of many of our activities, either daily in terms of domestic work or official work or business.
Oh, binuksan nga niya yung telecommunications,
Yes,
di ba?
yes.
I mean,
So that, and then of course we became more focused in our programs. He accepted the fact that we would focus our R&D programs to export winners, which was determined collaboratively with other departments. It was not just a decision of DOST. We brought in DTI, we brought in other groups. We were still, of course, subject to congressional allocations, and at that time we were already implementing a World Bank loan worth $85 million for engineering and science education. So, but that loan was approved during Cory's time, but it was implemented during Ramos' time.
dapat engineer siya eh.
Yes, yes.
I
So-
guess he's also being an engineer, no? Was I
Exactly.
guess,
You would sense that because there were some discussions on infrastructure, and at that time, I think in one of the sessions, if I can remember, Secretary Vigilar was talking about earthquake proofing our skyways
Oh, okay.
because they were elevated,
Yes,
and
yes.
therefore when there is a
Sway,
tremor,
yeah.
you get it to move. So they had some discussions technically. Yeah.
Well,
So
both of them were engineers.
both of them were engineers. Yes. So I think that made a big impact on his thinking about science and technology.
And tying it up to as a tool and as a platform for national development.
Exactly.
Yun ang ano eh, di ba? Yung,
Yes.
yun nga yung stand eh,
Yes,
di ba?
Stand 2000.
Oo. Tapos nakadikit sa Philippines.
Yeah, because
2000.
Philippines 2000 had global competitiveness. If you want to be competitive, then you have to bring in a factor of technology, especially if your products are to move into a global market.
Yeah. And then training, focus on education
Yes.
for STEM, di ba? Science, Technology, Engineering,
Yes.
and Math.
And it was during his time when the DEX was, what do you call that, changed into Department of Education, Commission on Higher Education, and TESDA.
Yes, that. Oo nga, no?
It was
So,
during his time, yes.
Focused.
So there would be more attention to higher education, which was then a bureau of DEX, just the Bureau of Higher Education,
Oo nga.
became a commission and cabinet rank. Of course, we give credit to also to the contributions of Senator Angara in making sure there is that reform initiated into our education and training program. Yes.
Was he able to do everything he set out to do? I mean, it was a pretty large plate. he
Yes,
had.
in some aspects, yes, and in some, I think he was able to start it up. And some of my colleagues in the cabinet said 6 years is probably not going to be enough, and if he does not, if these are not continued, then it becomes an accident of history.
Oh, that's sad.
Yes.
So, did he have enough time? Hindi, ano?
No. The magnitude of our problems that had to be corrected or had to be promoted in terms of solutions just were bigger than the man himself, and even the reforms that were needed for us to be able to respond in an effective and timely manner. Those two elements were very important, especially with regard to the environment, because if the degradation will take place whether or not you do. If you are very slow, the degradation is going to take place. It's not going to stop and wait for you,
Yeah, right.
and may reach a point of irreversibility.
That's right.
So, pagka ganon, mahirap nang cure. Plus, of course, he had to deal with the political problems.
Yeah.
We were there when he and Mr. Wari met in Malabang, Lanao. Yes. We were brought there. The whole cabinet was there. So he had to deal with that. And I admire him for taking the line of reconciliation, we're getting to work together and in spite of differences. That was an important element of him being a consensus builder, which is a rare trait.
Strange, because soldier,
Yes.
you'd think na, obliterate the enemy. That's it.
Yes.
But he actually,
Yeah, because
3 groups, the MNLF, RAM, and the NPA. Successful dun sa dalawa.
But,
2 out of 3.
Secretary Almonte used to tell us that they were both disturbed that we were fighting our own
Yeah.
brothers and sisters.
So,
So it was they did not feel that should continue. Yes. That's why I think every time he speaks, it's very positive. Let's work together. Kaya natin ito. So,
Oh, yun yung
Yeah.
rallying.
Yeah.
Kaya natin ito.
I don't think I have heard him say negatively about, it's, pabayaan na yan, huwag na natin.
Or, what's the
Get
other one,
them
sir? Stay with me, the best
Yeah.
is yet to come.
Yes.
No?
So
Yeah,
those were, I think, very important, positive calls for a leader. And I think we need more of that.
Yeah. Or people who can build on what was
Yes.
already created. Where were you when he had that emergency procedure? Were you?
I knew about it only after.
Talaga?
Yes.
Shortly
the
before Christmas.
Yes. There was a gathering,
Yeah.
and I think people noticed he was starting to have
It was a
some
slur.
slur.
Yeah. You were worried.
Yes, of course. Because That was, I don't remember what year.
96.
Yes.
Mhm.
That was still within his term.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh.
And I had just been confirmed. 95 ako na-confirm eh. So,
Mm.
1 year lang.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
But it was a blessing that he recovered well.
Mm. And wanted to dive in the pool about a week after. Ano rin eh, no? Tigas din ang ulo sa... You did not involve yourself with those attempts to amend the Constitution.
No.
You kept away.
No.
You kept away from that.
I was not in that initiative.
Mm.
And
There
I
were
just
a few
knew.
who were.
I just knew about it from the sidelines,
Mm.
but never confirmed
Mm.
because I didn't have any first-hand
Yeah,
exposure.
Mhm.
Neither did those who were directly involved, and I didn't know them,
Mm.
talk to me. So,
Ah, okay.
hindi ko alam kung totoo nga yun o hindi. That was then my...
Yeah, yeah. You stayed on, ano?
Yes,
Into
Estrada
the-
kept
into the
me.
next-
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I was then prepared to leave, but because his brother-in-law talked to me, Dr. De Guzman, Raul De Guzman was the chancellor of UP Los Baños when I was vice chancellor. So we worked together very well.
Mm.
And he said, gusto ni President magstay ka.
Mm.
Kasi masasayang naman yung ginawa ninyo.
Mm.
So sabi ko, sige sir,
Mhm.
I'll stay. But I was then already being asked by Erie to join.
To join them.
Yes.
Oo nga,
So
no?
I told Erie, well, I have this request. I cannot say no to Dr. De Guzman, so go ahead and look for others.
Mhm.
But then they talked to me again. So I said, this is a different signal now. So I had to ask permission from President Estrada
Mhm. To leave.
to
na.
leave. Yes. And he said, teka muna, maghanap ka muna ng kapalit mo. So I had to look for people who I thought would be good.
What was it like towards the latter part of FBR's term? Nagpapahinga na ba? O
No,
hindi pa rin?
because then we were celebrating our centennial.
Centennial. So wala pa rin. ano?
Yes.
Hindi pa
It
rin.
was still at a high point.
Walang rest mode.
No. We did not feel that we were on a, you call that rest mode, yes.
Mhm. Mhm.
That we were being reset.
Wala, actually.
Wala. Kasi June 12.
Oo nga.
Mm.
Nag-shift
So,
lang yung focus on or what theme, ano?
Yes.
But otherwise, everybody was still-
Yes. And of course, until the last day, because he then recognized, we were all brought to Malacanang, he recognized the efforts of the cabinet. You
Oo
know,
nga. Oo nga.
some
Yeah.
of, I think all of us were given some recognition, Legion of Honor,
Yeah, yeah.
mga ganon.
Oh, ang ganda nga, no? May
Mm.
opportunity to thank the cabinet.
Yes. And then, halos ako, dire-diretso, I had to prepare for the inauguration of President Estrada
Mm.
in Barasoin.
Oo nga. You were part of the,
Yes,
the
I
inaugural.
had to be there.
Okay, so you,
But-
a year into Estrada,
About 7 months.
7 months.
Sila Bihid Larang nag-stay, tsaka
Oo nga,
si
oo.
Siason,
Oh, so you went into You went into,
Erie.
Erie.
After,
Back to Los Baños.
back to Los Baños. 5 minutes away from
You're,
home.
you're old, ano? Your hometown. You still meet with FBR?
Yes.
What are the meetings
Yes.
like? I mean,
Well, it's still...
tinatatrabaho ka pa ba niya hanggang ngayon?
Hindi na kasi yung last call niya nung sabi niya sumama ka sa akin sa Caraga.
Ito yung
Sabi ko, sir, hindi na ako ka-abcord.
Oh,
But
oh.
there are occasions where he's present and we would meet, even if it's not just his cabinet, you know, because he still would enjoy attending fora,
Yeah.
and it was one was on population, and he was there, and I was a speaker on food security. So, marami rin siyang tinanong, tapos siningin niya yung kopya ng aking PowerPoint, yung ganon.
So, meron pa rin,
And when he launches a book,
Nandun ka rin.
if I can be
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
I get a copy, get him to,
Sign.
yes,
dedicate.
pipila din ako.
What makes you all stay on? I mean, I get the same, ano.
Yes.
Truthfully,
I think-
I get the same thing from all your other
I think there's
classmates in the
an
cabinet.
an ethos that developed.
Okay.
I don't know if it's around the man or just the appreciation of a style of leadership that he exhibited. It happened to be FVR, but that could be a style of leadership that others could also adopt. So because my personal perception, so we saw that it was a very valuable ethos to kind of not only remember but also emulate. That probably kept us together, keeps us together, and makes it kind of important for us to meet once in a while, either to just reaffirm
Yeah.
our common and collective appreciation for that kind of leadership. And also just to renew our past connections, because we met very frequently.
Yeah.
It's a weekly meeting and then LEDAC. So almost twice a week, and then we were brought out for out-of-town meetings. Sometimes we would room together in a
Oh.
hotel. So that bond really was something difficult. It's really something difficult to ignore and break.
Looking back at it all, what, to your view, was his greatest legacy as president?
I think he was able to move things forward in a manner that all the stakeholders appreciated. Of course, it was not easy. He was reform-minded, but at the same time, he had something people would rally positively to. Sometimes we can be reform-minded and just have a program of investigating everybody.
Yeah.
But he had Philippines 2000. He had global competitiveness. That was a positive rallying point. He had to reform the government, get it straightened out. There are many things that needed to be corrected.
And that he got the monolith of the bureaucracy to move.
Yes. And I think still I would think the DAC was really the strength of his leadership. The fact that he got it organized and he used it to the hilt was really something that I think could be, there are many lessons that were learned there and could be adopted, which unfortunately I don't see being done. Sayang, nakakapanghinayang.
Yeah, yung gains,
Yes. Kasi dun yung very close collaboration and alignment of the executive and the legislative is there. So you get some differences, but you get it settled
Yeah.
to a mutually acceptable point. Of course, ganun man political ano eh.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much.